We are back with the GoPrimal experience. You guys know me by now. I'm Gillian, and I am from Bite Size Pieces Nutrition, or Bite Size Nutrition, out here in Barcelona. And I am talking with Morten, who I'm going to let present himself because I think that he will do a much better job than I will. So Morten, tell us a little bit about yourself. Why are we talking today? What's going on?
Yeah, I guess we'll find out why we're talking. No, I think I know why. It's this whole primal thing.
Mm-hmm.
I have a small brand that I call Grokfit, which is Grok is a name I lifted out of Mark Sisson's the Primal Blueprint.
Mm-hmm.
So he talks about this ancestral fitness guy he calls Grok, and I was just in love with the name and the whole thought of just having the primal lifestyle. So I created this little brand of fitness, which basically just, to me, trims away some of the fat I see in CrossFit, and just basically gets people to do hard manual labor. Besides that, I used to be a chief instructor in Aarhus CrossFit, which is a really large gym. We have, I guess, somewhere around 1,000 members.
Oh,
It's
wow.
big.
That's
Yeah,
like the biggest gym I've ever heard of.
Yeah, it's huge. It's one of Europe's biggest, I think. So we have these 4 giant sections of Aarhus CrossFit that are always up and running, and people are training outside as well. So it's big. It's a really cool place.
And so your branch of CogFit exists sort of within the CrossFit gym, or is it separate?
It does. Actually, it's been called the official box training. So it was just suggestions for people who wanted to do box and maybe didn't want to do all the hard work around programming. So the programming was just there for them. If they wanted to do box, maybe get some sandbags and air bikes and all that stuff that's difficult to cram into a class.
Mm-hmm.
So they wanted to do different kind of movements, overhead carries and all these stuff. So I created the programming for them. So Grokfit has been sort of like the box training for Aarhus CrossFit for a while now.
Oh, okay. And so I think we actually forgot to mention where you're located. You're located in Denmark, correct?
Yeah.
And It is a beautiful day in Denmark today. What's isn't it this time of the year? Is it summer yet? Is it not summer?
Oh, yeah, it's summer now.
Okay.
Officially summer. It's June here, but June is a sketchy month in Denmark. It rains and it's chilly often. So we get May and we get July, and then everything is up for grabs.
So the interesting thing, I've been to Denmark. I've been to Copenhagen. And so what, kind of the thought we have around, when I say we, I mean, like, I'm from the United States, but I've lived in Spain for a while, and sort of like the United States and then Spanish people. I think that the sort of thought process we have around, or the vision we have of Danish people, is that you guys are like super tough. You guys are sort of like very stoic, and very strong. And so do you think that sort of influenced, maybe why the CrossFit has been so successful there? Or are we totally making up this vision of who we think you guys are?
I think you're talking about Miko Salo. You know Miko?
Yeah. I actually saw him when he was in Barcelona. I saw him training, and I was like, who is that, like, amazingly good-looking older gentleman? And I just stood there and I was like, no, I can't go say hi.
Oh, you should have. I think he's a really nice person. I've never met him, but I know people in my gym who have, and he just seems like a genuine nice guy. But yeah, I think there's some truth in that in the Nordic countries, perhaps. Mm-hmm. And maybe it's all the cold weather, and we have to train and do our stuff anyway, even though it's freezing. So
yeah.
And well, I think maybe the strength comes from the system we've put up. It's difficult to fall through as a person in Denmark. There are a lot of safety nets catching you, and then I think that sets a lot of people free to really go after what they want to go after, and believing themselves, because maybe you don't fall that far after all.
That is absolutely beautiful. And I wish that, I don't want to turn this into like a social or political conversation, but
Sure, sure.
how do we bring that to the rest of the world?
I don't know. A lot of people are talking about the Scandinavian model.
Yeah.
So
I mean, and it's from
yeah,
what I understand is you guys are some of the most satisfied, like you have a very high level of satisfaction with, you know, where
yeah,
you live and and your lifestyle, which is also interesting because, you know, you hear a lot of people talking about like, oh, you know, I couldn't live through those winters, or like, you know, because there is a lot of like a big drastic difference between the summer is, you know, I was in Copenhagen in the summer and I was like, this is
yeah,
incredible. This is like, this is
yeah.
just pure joy. And then, you know, in the winter, it's like, I've had people tell me, you know, you don't see the sun at all. It's, you know, it's just totally depressing. But then everybody seems so just sort of like, all right, well, I guess we'll continue on with our lives. We're all good now.
Yeah. Well, that's true. We hibernate.
Yeah. And
Kind.
so I guess the
Yeah.
gym is probably very helpful. In the gym, do you find that the gym in
Oh
the
yeah,
winter is more packed than in the summer?
definitely. It especially at our place with so many members, it's sometimes really difficult to find a spot.
Yeah.
So we keep trying to expand.
And so for you guys, because I guess, you know, we were talking earlier about like the primal lifestyle, and the reality of the
Yeah.
situation is like if we're thinking about who we are as humans, like we are, you know, we're programmed to be able to withstand like some pretty drastic circumstances. But I think that,
Sure.
you know, modern life has made us kind of like a bunch of wimps in a sense. And so
Perhaps.
I
Yeah.
would imagine that that basically kind of what you're trying to do with your program, and tell me if I'm wrong, is kind of make people less of a wimp. Is that right?
Well, yeah. I don't want to be divisive here, so maybe because of
Be divisive.
so
Like
few.
we like divisive. We want to. We
Yeah. Okay.
if you don't have
Okay.
haters, then you're doing
Yeah.
something
Okay.
wrong.
Then I totally agree with you. We don't like wimps here in Scandinavia. So it's just basically stripping it down to hard manual labor. I truly believe we were created to work, and not created in a religious sense. Just the DNA in us.
We've
It's for
evolved.
working.
We've evolved.
We've evolved to work. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a much better expression. And just getting away from all the vanity and getting down and dirty in the grid. It's just I love that kind of workout, and the people who follow Grokfit seem to like that kind of workout. You should see some of the videos people sent me. They're constructing barbells out of
Mhm.
building materials and cement blocks and flipping logs in the forest and just grunting, and men and women both. I love that gender equality aspect of both CrossFit and what I'm trying to do here. So
Mhm.
it's getting primal. It's getting back to your natural instincts, and also there's a sexual aspect in it. It's liberating. I definitely think you just to be primal.
Yeah.
It's definitely liberating.
And so when you say primal, like how do you define that? Like when you say like, when I, you know, when I talk about going primal, like what's the definition
Yeah.
for you?
Well, to me it's kind of like there's some life deep within me that when I'm in a society, when I'm in a workforce, I teach young people who had a tough break in several tough breaks in life, and I have to wear this mask all the time, and that's totally fine. That's just part of it. But I have to be really sensitive to what life is like for them, and that's good, and try to help them. But at the end of the day, I also need to strip down and be stupid and just be raw, and what bubbles up underneath behind that facade of sensitivity. And to me, just flipping a sandbag, doing burpees over it, and getting a heavy dumbbell and doing some snatches with that for 10 minutes maybe, it's just getting it all out. And I know when I work out in the gym, some people laugh at me because I grunt at times, but
Mm-hmm.
it's just I want to go there. I want to go where there's no thought. I want to go where my
It's
inner
just emotion.
sissy comes out. Huh?
So it ends up just being kind of like pure emotion, would you say?
Yeah, it is. It pure raw emotion for me, and it's maybe it's an instinct, maybe it's a hunter gatherer instinct.
Yeah.
So when I get there, and when I'm done with that, I feel like I'm a more balanced person. So
So it's interesting because I think it's something that you hear a lot where people are like, oh, the gym is my therapy. And like for me,
yeah,
I kind of so when I work with people, I work with people that a lot of the people I have as clients have like emotional issues around food or around body image and stuff like that. And so, there's that emotional side of it that some people say like, oh, well, working out is my therapy, but what they really mean
yeah,
is like working out is my way of punishing my body because I don't feel good about what I ate. And then there's,
yeah,
but I think that what you're talking about is finding that pure joy in movement and understanding like
absolutely.
the way that the body is meant to move. Like your joints are meant
It's
to not be static within a day. And so you've essentially taken what you feel is kind of like that ultimate goal and then put it into some sort of script. And the script is like the workout, right?
sure,
And
sure.
so
It's
how do,
I love what you just said.
thank you. And so how do you program that? How do you, is programming for it an emotional experience, or how do you put that together?
It's programmed for evolution. So what I try to do is get people running, get
Mhm.
people throwing, get people climbing, and just getting people to overcome. So when I do my programming, I'm always thinking about what we're designed to do with our bodies.
Mhm.
So I just try to mix and match that. And if I feel like somehow the movement is not adaptive, in a sense, it doesn't have an evolutionary purpose, I
Mhm.
skip it in my programming. That's not the same thing as saying I don't believe in it. Do your weighted snatches as much as you want. It's just
Mhm.
when I look at it, I try to look for evolution. I try to look for adaptation and what we're kind of like evolved to do, just like you just said. And
Mhm.
finding joy, definitely. There's pain. I hope there's pain, otherwise people are not really pushing themselves. But at the end of the day, it's a celebration of what your body is capable of doing. It's not a punishment for the lifestyle you're living. I do not believe in that for a second.
So what you just said is actually really interesting coming out of, like I haven't met you in person, but I imagine that you're like tall and broad. And
Actually, I'm not tall at all, but maybe a little broad, maybe just
and
yeah,
and I imagine that
average.
you probably don't have any like hang-ups about food, or you're not necessarily like counting calories or punishing yourself for eating
No,
a piece of chocolate. But what you've just said is sort of like a mantra for people that do have, or that are trying to teach people to get out of their emotional eating patterns and their
mhm,
emotional and their like punishment through exercise. Because I think, and it's interesting coming from the female standpoint, is like females are constantly described by what their bodies look like.
yeah,
And so for a female, finding joy in exercise is one of those things that we may find it in the long run, but you don't often go there looking for it. Whereas I think,
no,
from the male standpoint is like, you probably like played sports as a kid and you're trying to like get out some aggression or get out some energy.
sure,
Whereas for a
sure,
female, we usually start exercising because we want to change what our body looks like.
yeah.
And
I
so,
I don't deny my aggression at all. I'm sorry, did I interrupt you?
no, go ahead, go ahead.
No, I don't deny aggression at all. I think, well, maybe not aggression, but anger is a healthy emotion if it's productive. But I can channel that frustration I see in my day into something that just builds me up instead of tears me down. So instead of it just going around with my frustrations and let them build up the stress, I just find a way to channel that. But it's not just about that. It's not just a therapy what I'm doing. It's just believing in there's something we've evolved to do and we need to keep on doing. And
Yeah.
I see where you're getting at with this aspect of the maybe the gender part of it. But if I think that if a lot more women would get comfortable just being primal in the moment and just letting loose and getting it all out, maybe there'll be even more balance in them as well. It's a human condition, not a gender condition. Just
I can
have this space where you just let out and get all the vanity out of it.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. And I think that that is something that I think that we are moving towards,
Sure.
sort of within fitness. I think there's definitely a lot more, like fitness is becoming a lot more equal. Like it's becoming a lot
Yeah.
more accepted for women to be strong and women to have muscles, and to want to lift heavy weights. Like I actually I woke up this morning with like a physical craving to go do Olympic weightlifting.
Yeah, that's
And which is
great.
like, it's amazing. I mean, I don't have time to go today, but it was one of those feelings where I was like, wow, that is incredible. But I think that, you know, it, once you start delving into who you are as an individual and getting in touch with like your emotions and your cravings, and that's not just with exercise, but with food, you know, with all of these different lifestyle factors like food, sleep, movement, and being able to really connect with like, you know, what is it that I need in this moment?
Yeah.
And I think that that is a primal capacity that we're not teaching in schools. Most gyms don't even talk about it. And in our homes, like when you're growing up, it's not something you would talk about with your parents. So like,
No.
how do you learn this stuff?
Well, rough and tumble play. I sincerely, I believe in that. I was working with kids in kindergarten, just trying to establish rooms for rough and tumble play, because a lot of the kids didn't even fight for fun with their fathers. So a lot of the parents were coming to me and like, my son has had so much energy and made so much trouble before, but since you started fighting with him for fun and playing around, roughhousing, he's just become so balanced. He's so tired when I pick him up and he doesn't make a fuss at home and he
Yeah.
sleeps well at night. So yeah, you have to fight with your kids, and not just your sons, also your daughters. Well, just let them be what they want to be. And if they have that urge, if they have that aggression, just teach them to manage it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't teach them it's wrong. Like that whole shitty female, you have to be pretty, act
Mm-hmm.
right all the time. Get that bullshit away and just be what comes from the inside and try to manage it. And also what you said, the sum of vices is constant. There's always a craving, there's always an urge, there's always something you want to do, spend money, eat too much. But when the craving is for Olympic weightlifting, you're building yourself up. So
Yeah.
the craving's going to be there either way. It's just a matter of where do you channel that energy, and you're channeling it into something. I'm sorry about my pronunciation here, into something that's really building you up, and that's so healthy. But as long as it's not becoming addictive.
Yeah, I think that it's a thin line between obsession and passion, for a lot of people. And I think so you mentioned that you work with young kids. Was that an inspiration for creating this sort of like fitness movement, I guess?
Yeah, we're working on a branch of this called Grokfit family. So where parents come in with their kids and work out with them. And
Mhm.
of course, I don't teach anything too complicated there, because it has to be something they can just walk right into, understand, and do it. And I'm telling you, they're having so much fun, and it's really bringing them closer together. And we're just going to do a lot more of it. It's, CrossFit has CrossFit Kids, and
Mhm.
it's, as far as I can see, brilliant what they've developed there. But it's not having young kids come into a CrossFit gym and working out with their parents. I Kids down to three years of age, just climbing with their parents and just horsing around. So, and it actually got that way by accident.
Mhm.
I had a class for kids, just a CrossFit Kids class. There were 3 kids there that morning, and I thought, this is too little. And the parents were there as well, and I know the parents because they worked out at the gym. And I said, instead of just go and do a box class now, why don't you just join your kids and you'll do the programming with them? And they were so happy about it. And I just thought, wow, this is something. And we tried it out for a couple of times, and all of a sudden, my biggest class in Grokfit family were 65 people showing up for it.
Wow.
Yeah, I had to go out around the box and say, can you help me instruct? Can you help me instruct? Yeah, it was
Yeah.
just way too much, because it just spread like wildfire, the joy of training with your kids.
So the crazy thing is like, talking about all this primal stuff is that because family is also very primal, like that
Sure.
nuclear family, that blood relation. And I think that you're able to kind of, I think that's such a cool idea that I never even thought about it, Whereas it's like, you know, kids, you see kids like in Instagram videos all the time, and they're like picking up their parents' kettlebells and like, you know, trying to play with the barbells. But I think that adding that in is like a family event, or like, you know, instead of going out for with the family to go get ice cream, it's like, why don't you all go exercise together? And
Sure.
being able to introduce your child to something that, you know, is both difficult and fun at the same
Yeah.
time is really cool, because you can teach the kids resilience, which is something that I think, you know, if you ask a lot of us now, like, I don't know how old you are, but if we look at like millennials these days, which I guess like I'm on the far, you know, the like older end of that, is like everybody keeps talking about how millennials are such, you know, wimps and they're so weak.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so maybe they just needed to work out with their parents.
And fighting with their parents. It's play. It's rough and tumble play, and Grokfit family is all about play.
Yeah. So
It's throwing. Yeah, sorry.
what does a class look like? Like like how do you program? Yeah, I mean, maybe just like give me an idea of, I don't know, the last class that you taught.
Yeah, sure. They come in, they warm up. I go through the rules with them because I have some rules. Rule number one is when I talk, they don't.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got some other rules there, but basically what I do is I get their parents to dictate or to help me just keep the discipline in the class, so I don't have to raise my voice or anything. So, but they come in, they get the warm up, and then we start doing human movement practice.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a climbing session, we have a running session, and we have a throwing session, and maybe we have a strength component that's not based around barbells, but just moving odd objects around. So we play around with that a lot. And at the end of the class, there's a workout for those who want to participate. And they
Mm-hmm.
always have to work out with their parents. And if it's too much for them, because I've had some parents bring kids that were challenged physically,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I just give them a free pass to say, this is not mandatory. This is optional if you want to participate in the workout at the end. So that's basically the class. But the first 40 minutes is always centered around human movement and
Mm-hmm.
practicing that and having fun, and they love it. They we always go through this thing I call the zoo, and then I ask the kids to say animal names, not names, but you know, say animals, and they go, I want to walk like a goat. Okay, show me how a goat walks, and everybody gets to walk like a goat, and then a giraffe, and then a spider, then a snake, and they go, ooh, 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 let me suggest the next time. And it's fun, it's participatory, it's really good.
That actually sounds really fun. And then on that side, so if you guys, would you say that what you're trying to promote is more of like, you know, just primal movement, or do you guys talk about like other lifestyle factors as well? Like, you know, reducing screen time or like changing nutrition, or how do you talk about that when I'm sure people ask you or families start to ask you about that stuff?
Well, it's kind of it's difficult. I feel like that's sort of where it gets religious for people. You know, you know all about diet, and you know how much emotion is involved with that. So I try not to mention that too much, but we have talked about screen time. We've talked about posture,
Mm-hmm.
and just basically substituting screen time for movement and having fun in that way. But a lot of our members, they come down, they get the workout, and then they leave again. It's creating that total lifestyle experience has shown to be difficult here in Aarhus. We've tried several times, but people are like, leave me alone with the diet stuff, I just want to work out.
That's interesting. It's interesting because it, you know, especially, you know, through CrossFit, like if you look at like the CrossFit pyramid, and you've got like nutrition, and then I think it's
Yes.
like gymnastics and weightlifting, but it's like,
Yeah.
nobody wants to deal with the nutrition stuff. It's like, it's almost like a very, it's almost like religion. Like you said,
It
like
is.
it's like nobody wants to ask the questions because they're scared that you're going to tell them that, you know, they can't eat bread anymore, or like,
Yeah.
you know, they're not supposed to eat sugar or whatever. And at the same time, it's like that, especially when kids are involved, that's so important to have these conversations. And so is it something that you know, because I'm imagining this is sort of like a segment of the larger gym. And so is that part of the larger gym community as well, or do they kind of avoid it?
Talking about diet.
Yeah, like talking about diet or other
Yeah.
type of lifestyle factors.
Well, I feel like everybody's avoiding it. I did teach some classes down there about diet. It's just
Mhm.
basically when we started this in 2009, nobody knew about paleo or anything. So or the zone diet, which were the two things Glassman was promoting at the time. And so we had some lectures about that and talked about it in a performance sense, but it's people do their own thing.
Yeah.
I feel like I still stand for primal eating, paleo eating. So that's what I try to do. I try to avoid sugar. I avoid as much of the carbs as possible. Not because of anything really. It's just I feel like fat and protein keeps me satiated for a lot longer.
Mhm.
And it's not something I need to preach about. But when people ask, I say this is what works for me.
Mhm.
So I've been paleo for many years, but like this 2.0 thing, I have this one rule about my eating is when I go visit other people, I I do what they do. So it's like the expression, when in Rome, you do as the Romans do.
Yeah.
So I don't want to bring my eating habits or anything into other people's homes. I feel like that's disrespectful.
So I really appreciate you saying that, because I think that some people, and especially now, people are so sort of like dogmatic about
Yeah,
diet. And for me, what I teach my clients is like, look, control what you can control, and then
yeah,
the other stuff shouldn't stress you out. It's like if you go to someone's house and they're serving you, pizza, and you're like, well, like I'm not supposed to be eating any flour. Well, unless you're going to have an allergic reaction to it, like
sure.
it's not something you
Celiac
can
disease.
control. Enjoy the
No,
pizza, move on with your life. But I feel
yeah.
like now is, everybody says like, well, you have to be keto, or you have to do this, or you have to count your macros. And it's like, well, you don't have to do anything. And you also don't have to have it affect anyone else's life.
I love the last part of what you just said. I feel like that's really important. And I have daughters, and I don't want to be a negative impact on them or their eating. So, and and they're young, they just everything they eat, it goes through them. It's when you get older, you were talking about age before, and I'm 38 now, so I I know on my body that I have to be more careful about what I eat. Back in the day, 10, 30 years ago, maybe I used to do cardio, um, fight martial arts, and then my workout routines every day. So it didn't matter what I ate.
Yeah.
Everything was, yeah. But that's not my life now. I have work. I have Grokfit. I teach. I have family. I've got all these things going on. So I have to be really careful about my time and about what I consume.
Yeah.
So I found a way that works for me, and it's a lot of protein. I love organic meat,
Mhm.
and that's what I try to eat and spend my money on, getting quality of beef instead of just quantity of beef. And I've just found out also that I don't, as you said, don't have to be dogmatic about it. I don't have to be scared of like losing muscle if I don't get X amount of protein a day. It's just I eat like until I feel like I'm full enough, and I just try to calm my mind. If I feel hungry, I go, don't worry, you got
Yeah.
storage. Yeah, you got stuff to use. You're not gonna die from this. But
And so,
if you had asked me 15 years ago, I would be afraid of muscle waste if I didn't get enough protein, and I just don't care anymore. I just yeah,
isn't
I
it
go for
funny
quality.
how like once you've been doing something for a long enough time and you sort of understand what your baseline is, you're like, I don't need to be freaking out about this as much as I thought I did.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But
And
but but I also think you have to be kind of obsessive about it at first if you want to change something. So if you want to try out keto, you have to do it right to really get that keto effect, or paleo, or just going high carb, low fat. you have to be stringent until you know how it works. It's for me, it's sort of like learning a sport or learning an instrument. You
Mhm.
have to practice the basics, and then when you're done, you can improvise, you can freestyle. And I've done basically all of the diets out there, and they all work if you stick to them. That's my
Mhm.
experience. It's just what I do now is what I found was the easiest for me to stick to. And high fat, a lot of protein, and lesser on the carbs unless I have a tough workout. I eat more carbs, and I got no limit on fruit, and it's just yeah, just chilling out about it, not being dogmatic. And if the family's eating ice cream on a hot summer day, of course I'm eating ice cream. What kind of a signal would it be to send not having ice cream? Yeah,
Exactly. What kind of serial killer doesn't eat ice cream with their family?
yeah, yeah. That's
Well,
a
I think
cycle right there.
what you said is so correct. Where it's like, you know, I think I look at health, like nutrition, as a spectrum. And so there's like the far end of the spectrum where it's like you don't know anything, or you don't care, or you don't even think about it. And then there's like the other end of the spectrum that it's like that's all you think about, and you're super
Yeah,
strict about everything. You weigh and measure everything, and you're super super strict. And then sometimes I think you need to kind of swing back and forth a little bit.
yeah, yeah,
And then once you swing back and forth, it's like a pendulum. Eventually you'll settle right around the middle. Sometimes you'll be a little bit more on this side. Sometimes you'll be a little bit more on that side. But in general, you're going to be pretty much always in the middle. But I think in order to find the middle, a lot of the time you do need to go to those far ends of the spectrum. And I think it's with training as well. So it's like
yeah,
you know, you said that you used to do martial arts and all of that. And so I imagine there was a time when you didn't exercise, and there was a time when you exercised way too much.
yeah,
And now you're probably at this nice middle point where you're like, look, I know what feels good. I know what type of movement I like to do. And I'm
yeah,
going to do that most of the time.
yeah. I work out for maybe an hour and a half a week.
Seriously?
Imagine that. Yeah, imagine
Wow.
that. And it's fine. I feel like I look the same. My numbers are the same, basically on the strength. Maybe some of the power lifts I've lost something there. I don't really care. This is all about convenience for me. You know, I work most of the time. I work out in my backyard.
Wow.
I build a rack, and I have kettlebells. I have dumbbells. I have a box. I have rings, and I have an ab mat, so I can take care of my head doing handstand push-ups.
Yeah, you
And I
don't
have
really
a
care to like to pad
yeah,
your
yeah,
head.
yeah. It gets pretty sore when you hit it though. And then I have a sandbag, 56 kilos, and I have a vest. And I can feel like I can do everything I want to do in Grokfit at home.
That's
And I love that freedom.
yeah. You know what's
So
interesting
and
is, oh, sorry, go ahead.
well, just and then we in the weekends we go in and be social about our workouts. So I bring my wife and kids, and we just go hang out in Aarhus CrossFit because we've been there forever and we know everybody. And being social is also part of your fitness,
Yeah,
especially your mental
I
fitness.
agree.
Yeah,
But it is so interesting what you can do with so little. And I think, you know, we become very like emotionally when you're used to being in the gym a lot, you get very like emotionally tied to having lots of equipment. And
yeah,
and so I've still been working out at home, even though the gyms have opened back up in Barcelona. And I've been mostly working out at home, and I've got, you know, like a couple things. I've got a TRX, I've got some bands, I've got a yoga mat. And last night I was just like, you know what? I really feel like doing some yoga. And I was like,
yeah,
I don't want to watch a video. I don't want to do anything. I just put in my headphones and I did like, I think it was I have no idea how long I was just moving,
yeah.
like in the dark, eyes closed, just moving. And I was like, and when I was finished, I was like, that was incredible. And I didn't do that when I was going to the gym every day.
Sounds kind of primal what you did there.
Exactly. It felt really
You
primal.
dove deep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I felt
you
really
dove
deep. It
deep.
felt great.
Yeah,
There was like
yeah,
it felt really good actually.
yeah.
Yeah,
Beautiful. Yeah,
it was awesome. So yeah, I think we could all stand to be a little bit more like, I think what I'm taking out of this is like being, you know, understanding primals, like understanding what your really deep needs are, is like
yeah.
really getting to like the heart of what it is that you need as a human, both physically, emotionally, spiritually, nutritionally. And
Mm.
that's, I mean, it's difficult. It's hard.
It's we're deceiving ourselves all the time.
Yeah.
So so there has to be this space in your life when you get back in contact with that, and especially if the social part is the one you're struggling with, your mind is just going to be racing all the time. Where I work, there are a lot of psychologists working as well, and we have these workshops and lectures. And we had one of the major psychologists from, I think he's from Norway, talking about burnout, working with people in kind of like you can say the health business, the coaching business, just helping other people with their lives burns you out as well. And he told this story where he was talking to this sports psychologist who had worked with a lot of people with really great success in the sports world. And he asked, what's the common factor in all these people? And the sports psychologist said, have a great private life.
Yeah.
So, you know, taking care of yourself in all aspects is just what's going to get you to perform when the stakes are high.
I completely agree with that. And I think we're going to end on that note, because I love that. That was amazing. So thank you so much.
Thank you.